Welcome back, students who are taking math for business and finance and math applications. This series of videos are on chapter 14. They're going to be the theory videos for the chapter installment buying. Now, the thing about this chapter is it's actually, for all lack of a better term, it's new content. I mean, as we were going through the previous chapters, we had simple interest, which was a stepping stone for, compound interest, which was a stepping stone for finding present value and a future value of a lump sum, which was a stepping stone for the present value, future value of annuities. Okay, so in the past, chapters have been building and building and building, one upon the other. But this particular chapter now all of a sudden, takes, kind of a left-hand turn, and we're not so concerned about compounding and present and future value. However, it doesn't mean that the concepts that came in the earlier chapters don't apply. Okay, way back when we were talking about ratios in one of those very early chapters, there was the concept, we were presenting the concept of 100% of something, and then a portion of this and a portion of that. And I'll reintroduce, since we're only looking at a blue screen right now, I'll reintroduce those thoughts and concepts as we're going through the theory where it's applicable. So if you understood ratios way back when, then this shouldn't be, that much more difficult, because it's basically a ratio. I mean, you think about it, if if I have, as an example, a house that's $120,000, and I put $20,000 down as a down payment, well, how much is left over for me to finance? $100,000. Well, the 20,000 plus the 100,000 is the total amount of the house. That's all ratios, which we had covered earlier in one of those earlier chapters. All right, so with that, I'm going to begin to move on, and we'll cover, let me get the new slide here. Okay, so we're going to talk about the cost of installment buying. Okay, and we're going to jump right into this idea of the previous, ratios, how this pertains to installment buying. Okay, so as you can see, there's three formulas on this screen. Okay, it says here the amount financed is the cash price minus the down payment. Okay, so you remember seeing this from an earlier chapter, and we'll call this our cash price. Right? And remember, that's 100%. Okay. Now, if we have a down payment, okay, that's a portion of this 100%. That's a certain percentage of that 100%. So if I have a down payment, whatever amount that is, okay, then this remaining section is the amount that's financed. Okay. And remember, if I have, the cash price, and I'm going into the ratios, and you'll see this. So I have the cash price here, and I subtract out the down payment, and that gives me the amount financed, right? In dollar terms, that's pretty easy to understand. I can have, say, like I said, $100,000, and I'm sorry, $120,000. And if I put down a $20,000 down payment, well, I subtract one from the other, and that means the amount that's being financed is 100,000. But let me use, to keep numbers a little bit easier, let me use a cash price of 100,000. Okay, and still put down the $20,000 down, and that means the dollar amount is of amount financed is 80,000. Well, that's from a dollar perspective, and remember, we can also there's that relationship between dollars and percentages, in that the cash price is 100%, the down payment would be 20%, and that means the amount financed in this case would be 80%. Okay, so you see how that information, is, that the theory from the previous chapter in dealing with ratios and percentages applies just as much here. Okay, when we're looking at this, so it's not a matter of, oh, I'm learning something new. No, it's just a matter of thinking about it a little bit. Well, the thought process is the same, but we're using just a little bit of a different terminology and for a different purpose. Okay. So let me finish erasing this here. And okay, so that's that first formula. And of course, the second formula is the total finance charge is the total of all monthly payments minus the financed, the amount financed. So when you borrow money, so if you have an amount that's financed, okay, because you're financing it, there's going to be interest applied to it. And I'm just making this stuff up as I'm going along. So if we had, let's say we're borrowing $100,000 and it's at 20% interest, okay? And so that means we'd have $20,000 of interest, and that means the total amount is $120,000. Now, notice that $120,000. I mean, if it was for like 1 year and we're making monthly payments, that means we divide by 12, and that each monthly payment would be $1,000. Okay. Well, part of that $1,000, is a portion of the principal here. Okay, and a portion of that interest. Okay, so I'm not going to do the math here, but if you think about it from a perspective of dividing the 100,000 by 12, and that would give you, 900 and some odd dollars in principal, and then the 20,000 divided by 12 would be the interest portion. So you have your principal plus your interest as part of your monthly payment. Okay, so your total finance charge would be the total of all of the monthly payments, okay, minus the amount that's financed. So if I had 12 monthly payments, if I have monthly payments of 1,000 and I have 12 of them, okay, so that's 120,000. But I can subtract out the amount financed of $100,000, okay, which would then give me the $20,000 of interest, right? The amount, the total finance charge. Now notice I said finance charge, and I keep on stumbling here because I keep on saying interest, right? Again, it's the same concept, it's just a different terminology, okay? When you're taking a loan, when you're taking a loan and you're having to pay it back, okay, we talk in terms of the finance charge, how much you're paying for the borrowing of that money, okay? But on the other side, so let me draw a little picture here. Let's say this is the bank and this is you. So when you're borrowing the money, okay, and you're paying, regardless of how much that money is, and that's in this case 100,000, okay, whatever amount that you're going, the bank is going to lend to you, okay, the 100,000, they're going to want money back on it, and for them, they're charging you what, interest from their perspective, okay, but from your perspective, that amount that's over and above the 100,000, in this case 20,000, right, that to you is called finance charge, right? It's the same thing, just different terminologies, and that's why it's said. None of this stuff is new. I mean, it's the same process, it's the same thinking. It's just a matter of, from which perspective you're looking at it and the terminology that's involved. Okay, so with, that's our total finance charge. Now, let me erase all of this again. And Okay, your deferred payment price is equal to the total of all the monthly payments plus the down payment. So if I had $1,000 a month times 12 months, okay, that would be $120,000. Okay, but remember, you were borrowing 100,000, okay, and it was at 20% interest, okay, which means you had $20,000 of interest, okay, and that's how you ended up with your monthly payments. Okay? But we had originally started with saying that, well, in this case here, I would have said, oh, if I was actually, the cash price was 120,000, and I put, say, $20,000 down. Okay, that's how I ended up borrowing the 100,000. Well, here my deferred payment price is the total of all of those monthly payments, which is the 120,000, plus that down payment that we had put, right, of $20,000. Okay, so my total deferred price is actually is $140,000. Okay, and remember, the cash price was 120,000, right? That's the cash price, but because of the down payment, I'm sorry, because of the interest, the finance charge of $20,000, the total amount that we're going to end up paying is 140,000. Okay, so the deferred payment price, it can be calculated in several different ways, in a couple of different ways. So just be aware of that. But the basic idea being is that, and let me go back to my little old picture here. So I have this, and this is my cash price. And remember, that was 100%. Okay, so here I had my down payment, which means this amount, all right, is the amount that's financed. Okay, but the amount that's financed, you're going to be charged interest or a finance charge, right? And if you're being charged interest or a finance charge, that amount will have to be added to this 100%. Okay, so the deferred payment price, right? Deferred payment price is going to be greater than the 100% of the cash price, okay, because of the addition of interest or finance charge, okay? So whatever amount that is gives you this, total amount of the deferred payment price, okay? So, even though when you think about it in terms like that, you also think that for the amount financed, depending upon how it's paid back, it could be a monthly payment, quarterly payment, an annual payment. So that amount that's being financed when you have to pay it back is all dictated by, the terms of the agreement for the paying of the loan. Okay, so and that, when I look up here at the cost of installment buying, the cost of the installment buying is this interest or this finance charge. Okay, so you have, the amount that's being financed. The total finance charge is the additional interest, and that's the actual cost to you for borrowing that money. And the total amount plus the interest ends up being your deferred payment price. Okay, so I hope you understood that, and if not, pause the video, rewind it, watch it again. And if you have if you still don't understand, you have any additional questions, feel free to telephone and speak with an instructor or contact us via email. And I will see you in the next theory video. Where is it?